Leave the gun, take the cannolis. A fairly iconic line from The Godfather. But little did any of you know that those cannolis from that scene were from my grandfather's pastry shop. I grew up idolizing my grandfather. Wanted to talk with an accent, wanted to make people smile, and even wanted to dress like him, which is pretty hard considering his wardrobe consisted of solid color Adidas jumpsuits. My poppy, as I called him, came over from Italy when he was just 16 with little to nothing to his name. Once he cleared Ellis Island, he immediately went to work, continuing his passion on pastries in a small New York pastry shop. Saving money, sleeping on couches, and struggling for months, he eventually saved up enough money to start his own shop. Vito's pastry shop, he would call it. This is where my life started. My grandfather would slave away baking cookies and cakes as I would run around eating them before they could even hit the shelves. He used to yell at me and say, "Vetuch, fangula sord, get the hell away from the cookies." I would just laugh at him and try to repeat what he said in a fake Italian accent. To give you a better picture, my poppy was a medium-sized Italian man with slick back hair, the thickest mustache to come over from Italy in years. Everything you know about a stereotypical Italian man, that was him. And yes, he did have a gold chain around his neck at all times. Since I was just starting my life, he was in it almost every day. Every soccer game I played, he was there sitting quietly. Every baseball game I played, he was there sitting even quieter because he didn't really know the rules. Every hockey game I played, he was in the stands passing out pastries to anyone and everyone. When I needed anything, he was the one to go to. Whether it was hockey gear, clothes, or even the stupidest of things, he was the one who would buy it and say, "I can't take this stupid money with me when I'm gone anyway, you know?" I'll never forget when I was accepted into Brooks and told my poppy all about the school. He pretended to understand what I was saying, was smiling, and all he asked was when he could visit. My freshman year, I called him every night, at the same time, every night. I would get him right before he would walk to bed. Freshman spring came, my poppy and my grandmother, Nona, were on their way up from Florida with a trunk full of pastries. At 10 a.m. on a Saturday, I received a call from them saying they were here. Now, to put things into perspective, Poppy was never one to be late. Actually, he was terrified of being late. He would get to things, no joke, 2 hours before, sit in his car, and people watch. Anyway, I still had 2 more classes, so I figured he would do the same thing as always, sit in his car and people watch. Well, for some reason, he got bored, continued to pull up onto Main Street, right in front of Thorn House, pull out a fold-up table and chair out of his car, and set up a makeshift pastry shop out of the back of his car. Being only a freshman, I was terrified. I received multiple calls from kids saying that my grandfather was literally having a pastry shop on Main Street. I took a long bathroom break to come see the commotion he was causing. There was actually a line that stretched past the dining hall to get his cakes and cookies, which he was filling on the spot. This was the kind of man my grandfather was. He didn't care what people thought about him. He only cared about making people happy. On Poppy's next visit, he would call me every day before and tell me how excited he was to finally see me play hockey. When Poppy came, I watched with him as I got hurt the game before. This came to be the biggest regret of my life. As little did I know, that was going to be the last time my grandfather was going to be able to see me play. Sophomore year came, and my calls with my grandfather became more and more sporadic. I was getting more and more comfortable with the school. Then junior year came, and my calls with him became even more scarce. And then one day, Poppy stopped answering my calls, which was real odd because there was never a call that went unanswered with him. I would call my dad, and he would just say, maybe he was busy. But busy my grandfather was sitting on the floor watching soccer. One odd-feeling day came where Miss Reese pulled me out of biology. As we were walking to her office, I couldn't help but think what I did. Who I made fun of, what she heard me say in the dining hall, who I didn't show enough respect to this time. As she sat me down, she said, "You need to call your father." At this point, I knew what was going on, but didn't want to face it. My dad answered the phone crying. He said, "Vito, Poppy's gone." I dropped the phone and collapsed. Lying on the floor like a child, all I wanted to do was cry. My best friend, biggest fan, and mentor was gone. The person who I looked up to, who would call after every game, wasn't with me anymore. My last phone call with him was short, as little did I know he was in the hospital. His last words to me were, "Vito, Papi always loved you. Remember that." For some strange reason, I began to cry, not knowing that was the last time I would speak with him. Every night I talk to him before I go to bed. Every game I pray to him before I go on the ice. And I even call his house occasionally just to hear his voice. Since that call on April 25th, I began taking a different approach on life. I began working harder on the things that I loved, putting all my effort into things that made me happy, and caring less about the things that I found useless. I started enjoying every second I spend with my family, and I've been trying to make the most of my Brooks experience, even though I've made it clear that I have very mixed feelings about this place. Throughout my grandfather's long life, he taught me 3 important things that I will never forget. The first is to never care what people think about you. He would tell me as he baked more and more cookies in his underwear in his garage, as long as you're happy, nothing else matters. As long as you know what you want, how you're going to get there, and how much work you have to put in to get to your goals, you'll be fine. The second thing was to always have faith. Always know that whatever situation you're in will be okay. That he would tell me that if he didn't have faith, he wouldn't be here today. He'd still be in Italy, working 15 hours a day with no air conditioning. Trust in your religion, whatever religion you follow, he would continue to tell me, that everything is already planned out. Whatever's going to happen is already set, and in a way, that's what life's all about. Finally, he would tell me to enjoy being with your family. I never really understood what it meant until it was too late. I can't say I have ever met someone who cared about his or her family more than my grandfather. Maybe it was because he didn't get to see his when he was younger, or maybe it was because he understood how little time we all have here together. So, take time to call your family, take time to pray, and take time to enjoy the moment. Thank you.